right, we're gonna talk about a challenging topic here because, speaking from experience, it can be heartbreaking to see your child have a night terror. And that is why I wore this sweater, because I have so much love and compassion for families who are dealing with night terrors, because it can seriously be a nightmare. Ching, see what I did there? But truth be told, there is a huge difference between nightmares and night terrors. So let's just jump right in and break it down. On one hand, we have nightmares. Nightmares typically happen in the later hours of the night / early morning. Your child may be terrified and they may be physically awake and talking to you, telling you exactly what is going on, and they are responsive. On the other hand, we have night terrors, which generally happen in the first stretch of sleep, in the earlier hours of the night, and your child is also terrified, screaming bloody murder possibly, and they can't tell you what is going on. Maybe they are speaking nonsense. Both of my boys have had these night terrors. There was just one time where my child was crying and crying and crying, and I was like, what is the matter? And he's like, what do I do with all this stuff? And I'm like, what stuff? And he's like, this stuff in my hands. And then he physically goes like this and goes, now it's in your hands. He was like angry and scared and sad and crying, and it was very confusing, and I was just like, what the heck? The biggest difference between the nightmares and the night terrors is that nightmares, your child can recall the nightmare happening in the morning. Now, they may not remember every detail, but they will be able to remember that they woke up, that they had this nightmare, and that you were there to comfort them. With night terrors, your child's eyes will likely be open, and you will think that you're talking to them and that they're responsive and all the things, but they may just be like totally glazed over in the face, and they will have zero recollection of it in the morning. One of the best things that you can do if your child is having nightmares or night terrors really is to identify the cause of why this is happening. More times than not, night terrors are caused by stress and lack of sleep. This can be something that is triggered by your child having a really rough day, doing a lot of crying during the day, being incredibly exhausted, crashing, falling asleep, and then having it translate into their dreams, and they have a night terror. If your child has a major change in routines or a lot of overstimulation during the day, that can also be a trigger for your child. So just keep those things in mind, and we'll talk about different things that you can do to help avoid these night terrors and what to do when they happen. So let's jump in and talk about the 5 things that you can do to help manage your child's night terrors. The very first thing, and if you are not new to my channel, then you will know that I will always tell you to establish a proper bedtime routine. You want to make sure that your child's bedtime routine is exactly the same order every single night. That doesn't mean that it has to be exactly 15 minutes and 24 seconds every night. It just means you need to do the order of operations the same every single night. I don't care what your bedtime routine is. I guess I shouldn't say that I don't care what it is, because I obviously don't want you having a wrestling match right before bed. However, I do want you to have a calming, bonding routine with your child before bed, even if that means that you're doing some bedtime yoga, or maybe you're doing a puzzle, or whatever you are doing. Like, you can have physical activity, you can play a game with your child, but it should be calming and soothing and not getting them energetic and all riled up. So whether you are reading a book, or obviously you're gonna do your proper hygiene with your child before they go to bed, you can sing songs, you can give your child a quick massage, like any of the things that you find that you can do consistently every single day, do that, and then send your child off to happy dreamland. The second thing that you can do is make sure that your child's sleep environment is calming, and that there's nothing scary poking out at them. My daughter has this Minnie Mouse little stuffed animal that I tried to donate it once, and she saw me bringing it into the donation center, and she made me go back in there and take it back. I brought in a huge bag full of all of these stuffed animals, and she saw the Minnie Mouse sticking out of it, and honestly I didn't know that she was attached to it because she never played with it, but she screamed until I got it back for her, and that was a little embarrassing, because it's hey, I'm gonna donate all this stuff, I'm doing such a great deed. wait, can I have it back? But the Minnie Mouse is on the top shelf of her closet, and now she makes sure that she can't see Minnie Mouse's eyes when she's going to bed because it creeps her out. So long story short, make sure that your child's sleep environment is calm and soothing and that there is nothing scary. If you have a nightlight, I want you to make sure that stay in your child's room while the room is dark and the nightlight is on. Make sure there are no creepy shadows on their wall or that there's just no weird nightlight effect in your child's room, because that can happen too. Along with your child's sleep environment, I want you to make sure that if your child has a security item like a blanket or a favorite stuffed animal, then make sure that they have it every single night. If you have a toddler or a preschooler who 110% cannot sleep without their security item, double or triple up and make sure that you have backups. Tip number 3 to help manage your toddler's night terrors is to limit their daytime sleep. Now, sometime between ages 2 to 4, your child needs to drop their daytime nap. However, that is not what we're talking about in this video. If I even go off on that tangent, it's gonna be another 20 minutes. So your child's nap should never be longer than 3 hours, but if they're 3 or 4 years old, then they should probably be limited to 1.5 hours to 2 hours. If your child's nap is impacting their nighttime sleep, then you need to cut back on their nap. It doesn't mean you need to completely eliminate, but if it is time to eliminate their nap, then check out this video right here on how to transition from nap time to quiet time. Tip number 4 is to limit your child's stimulation before bed. And yes, I'm talking about screen time. I highly recommend that 1 to 2 hours before bed, you are cutting off screen time for your child. The blue light that is triggering their brain is telling them to stay awake, and it is not helping in the production of melatonin. In the early-ish evening, I would say around 6 p.m., especially if your child has a 7 o'clock bedtime, but generally after dinner, I encourage parents to clean up the kitchen as a family. Wouldn't that be great? Don't get me going on that tangent either, but try this for your life. Try cleaning up the kitchen as a family, or at least with your child in the kitchen with you, and have your child turn off the lights to the kitchen and close the kitchen for the evening. Have your child say night-night to the kitchen. I know it sounds corny, but just have your child help you shut down the kitchen and dim the lights in the house as much as you can so that your child is getting ready to calm themselves down to go to bed. If you have an overstimulating before bed routine, even if it's not part of your specific bedtime routine, but if your child is watching TV until it's time to go to sleep, then it is going to take a long time for their brain to wind down. It's going to take them longer to fall asleep, and it's going to take their brain physically longer to get into sleep, which is going to increase the chances and probability of them having a night terror. Now, the 5th thing that you can do, and this comes down to when your child is actively having their night terror, is honestly to just comfort them. You want to comfort them calmly without getting too involved in what's going on. Because your child is having a night terror, they're very much not aware that you are there trying to get them out of it. Sometimes you need to just let it pass. You can hug and hold your child, and they're probably going to be crying and making no sense at all. And this is where it does become very heartbreaking and defeating as a parent, because you always want to help your child and give them the best experience of life possible. And this can feel like there's nothing that you can do to help. But until your child calms down or wakes up and realizes that what's happening is not real, there's just not a whole lot that you can do. So just be there for your child and gently comfort and hold them. Another thing that I wanted to talk about in this video is understanding the age range of night terrors. This might ruffle some feathers because some parents of 6-month-old babies will come to me and say that their baby's having night terrors, and it is so uncommon. I'm not saying that it is impossible, but it is very uncommon for children under 2.5 to 3 years old to have night terrors. And that is because a lot of this is going to be triggered by their imagination and different thoughts that have come into their mind and different concepts that they've held onto that may be stressing them out. And especially as their brain is changing and growing, then it can become more common. So generally around 2.5 to 3 years old is when they can start. I'm not saying it's impossible before that, but it's very unlikely. And they can last up through about 12 years old. Now, fun fact, I took my 10-year-old to his 10-year well visit, and I did tell his doctor that he was having an increase in these night terrors, that they were happening a little bit more often than they had in the past. And she said that as they start getting hormonal and puberty is coming around the corner, it's going to happen more often, and it is common. So as much as it sucks to think like, oh, it's normal for this to happen to my child, at certain times of their life, it is more common. And I think that that can just bring a little bit of comfort to parents, knowing that it's not just your child, it's a lot of children. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on really quick is managing your child's anxiety. So a lot of children, I will encourage to keep a journal or a diary or a gratitude journal, and to think about the positives before they go to bed. This is something I do with my daughter a lot because she's very sensitive. She takes very little things and can blow them out of proportion easily. No idea where she got that from. It breaks my heart to see her kind of struggle emotionally in the way that I have before too, because if one thing happens or somebody says something, like, I dwell on it and I think, oh, I'm awful, I'm terrible, I'm horrible, blah, blah, blah. And I see her doing the same thing. And so focusing on gratitude and the positives and the good things that happened that day has made a huge, huge difference. So helping manage those anxieties in that way can definitely be helpful. And also teaching your child some like meditation and breathing techniques, helping them really calm down before they fall asleep to bed. If you're noticing that your child has a lot of anxiety or significantly frequent night terrors, I highly recommend bringing your child to a therapist. Play therapists are amazing for children, and I think that it makes a world of difference when your child has somebody on the outside that they can talk to about things, especially through play, when they don't even know that they're being therapized. Now, remember that every child is unique. Every nightmare or night terror situation is going to be different, and just remember that you just come from a place of love and caring and helpfulness when you try to comfort your child through these experiences, and remember that this too shall pass. Also remember that if this situation continues or even worsens, that you should reach out to your child's pediatrician. Don't just go Googling all over the place if it is a persistent problem in your child's life, and there are many factors significantly impacted by your child's night terrors. Seek out medical advice when needed. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and keep blooming. Mwah.